All right, this is section 2.5, part 2. We're going to continue factoring. And, okay, notice here we have a leading coefficient of 6, and this equation is already in standard form. So what I'm going to do is, first off, I'm going to rewrite it down here. And then I'm going to take the leading coefficient and this constant, I'm going to multiply them together, and then rewrite this as x squared plus 17x plus 30 is equal to 0. Then I'm going to take 30 and find factors of 30. We have 5 and 6, but I can't get 5 and 6 to 17, so we can take 2 and 15. Now we can get to 17 here. 2 plus 15 will give us 17. So we'll take x plus 2 and x plus 15. And then I'm going to divide this term and this term by the leading coefficient up here of 6. So I will have x plus, and I'm going to take a 2 out of both of those, and that'll be 1/3. And x plus, if I can take a 3 out of both of those, so that would be 5/2 is equal to 0. And I'm going to move these bottom terms to the front here. So I'll get 3x plus 1 and 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, use your zero product property. So 3x plus 1 is equal to 0, or 2x plus 5 is equal to 0, and then solve for x for both of them. So subtract 1, so we have 3x is equal to -1, divide by 3. So x is equal to -1/3. And subtract 5 from both sides, so we have 2x equal to -5. So x is equal to, divide both of these by 2. Let me move that down just a hair. X is equal to -5/2. Now we need to check these in our original equation. All right, 6 times -1/3 squared plus 17 times -1/3 plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so this will be 6 times 1/9 minus 17/3 plus 5 equals 0. This will be 6/9 minus 17/3 plus 5 is equal to 0. I can take a 3 out of both of those, so that will be 2/3 minus 17/3 plus 5 is equal to 0. 2 minus 17 all over 3 plus 5 is equal to 0. Come up here. -15/3 plus 5 equals 0. That's -5 plus 5 equals 0. So 0 equals 0. So -1/3 is going to be one of our answers. Okay, so let's check -5/2. So 6 times -5/2 squared plus 17 times -5/2 plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so this is 6, 25/4 minus 17 times 5 is 85/2 plus 5 equals 0. Okay, it looks like I can take a 2 out of both the 6 and the 4, left with the 2 down here, left with the 3 up here. And so 3 times 25 is 75/2 minus 85/2 plus 5 equals 0. So 75 minus 85/2 plus 5 equals 0. So we'll get -10/2 plus 5 equals 0. -5 plus 5 equals 0. 0 equals 0. So x equals -5/2 is another one of our answers. Now let's look at this one. We've got x squared plus 11 squared plus 10 squared, or plus 10x is equal to 0. So we got, let me read that again. I might have messed up. X cubed plus 11x squared plus 10x equals 0. Okay, so notice I've got an x here, 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 and here. So I can factor out 1x out of all of them. I'm left with x squared plus 11x plus 10 is equal to 0. Now notice I've got x times this whole thing. So I have two algebraic expressions multiplied together and they equal 0. So I can set both of these equal to 0. So x equals 0 or x squared plus 11x plus 10 equals 0. Okay, so this one's already solved. X equals 0. Now I need to factor this. So x and x, and take 10, 1 and 10. Hey, I can get that to 11. So plus 1 plus 10. And then separate those by the zero product property. So x equals -1 or x equals -10. So we have three items that we need to check. X equals 0, x equals -1, and x equals -10. Okay, so let's check x equals 0. So 0 cubed plus 11 times 0 squared plus 10 times 0 equals 0. Well, this goes to 0, this goes to 0, this goes to 0. 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0, so 0 equals 0. So x equals 0 is one of my answers. And then let's check x equals -1. -1 cubed plus 11 times -1 squared plus 10 times -1 equals 0. Okay, -1 times -1 times -1 is still -1. -1 squared is just 1, so 1 times 11 is just 11. Minus 10 equals 0. -1, -10, that's -11. Plus 11 equals 0, so 0 equals 0. So x equals -1 is also one of my answers. Then let's check -10. So -10 cubed plus 11 times -10 squared plus 10 times -10 is equal to 0. Okay, so we got -1,000. And all I'm doing is I know that a cube is going to keep the negative, and then I've got a 3 here and a 10 here, so I'm just going to have 3 zeros plus 11 times, well, a square is going to get rid of that negative, and then I have a 10, so I'm just going to have 2 zeros because of that squared, and 3 zeros because of this 3. And then minus, okay, well, 10 times 10, that is 100. I have a 0 here, 0 here, so I'll put 1 here and 1 here. Okay, so equals 0. So then I've got -1,000 plus 1,100 minus 100 is equal to 0. And then 100 minus, or sorry, -1,000 minus 100, that's -1,100 plus 1,100 is equal to 0. So 0 equals 0. So x equals -10 is also one of my answers. Okay, now let's take a look at this one. First off, we have a leading coefficient of 5, and this is not in standard position. So we need to take this, and we need to, first of all, put it in standard position. So I need to move the 5x over. So 5x squared minus 5x is equal to 30. And I also need to move that 30 over as well. So 5x squared minus 5x minus 30 is equal to 0. Now notice I can take a 5 out of each of these terms right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm left with x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to divide both sides by this 5. So I'll have x squared minus x minus 6 equals, well, 0 over anything is going to be 0. Okay, well, now I have a leading coefficient of 1. So I'm going to break this up. X here, and then I need factors of 6. And I need to get to negative 1. 1 and 6 is not going to work, but 2 and 3 will if I have a negative 3 and a positive 2. So negative 3 times positive 2 gives me negative 6. Negative 3 plus positive 2 gives me a negative 1. Let me move this. Okay, by that zero product property, x minus 3 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals 3, or x equals negative 2. So let's check x equals. All right, so let's check 5 equals negative 2. Get rid of that. So actually, let me rewrite them. So we've got 5 times negative 2 squared is equal to 5 times negative 2 plus 30. So that's 5 times 4 is equal to negative 10 plus 30. That's going to be 20. 5 times 4 is 20. Negative 10 plus 30 is really just 30 minus 10. So that's 20. So x equals negative 2 is one of our answers. And then let's go back and check x equals negative or positive 3. 5 times 3 squared is equal to 5 times 3 plus 30. 5 times 9 is equal to 15 plus 30. 5 times 9 is 45. 15 plus 30 is also 45. Okay, so x equals 3 is another one of our answers. Okay, now let's look at factoring quadratic equations using the square root property. So with the x squared term isolated, the square root property states that if x squared equals k, then x equals plus or minus the square root of k, where k is a non-zero number. Okay, isolate x squared term, the x squared term on one side of the equal sign, then take the square root of both sides of the equation, put in the plus or minus sign before the expression on the side opposite of the squared term, and then simplify the numbers on the side with the plus or minus sign. Okay, so it seems like a lot of steps, but it's pretty easy. So if I've got x squared is equal to 36, what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to space that out a little bit more, I'm going to square root both sides. I'm not going to put the plus or minus sign here, but I will here. The reason why I don't put it here is because these two cancel each other out, and I'm left with just the x. And then I have the plus or minus the square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is just 6. So I have plus or minus 6 for my answer. So that's like saying x equals 6 or x equals negative 6. And if we check that, 6 squared equals 36. Well, 36 equals 36. That works. Negative 6 squared, include that negative within the parentheses for being squared, equals 36. Well, a negative times a negative gives you a positive. 6 times 6 gives you 36. So 36 equals 36. So both of these would be my answer. Now let's look at this one. First off, we need to isolate the term or the expression that has the square, which is the x minus 4. That has the square. So I first need to divide both sides by the 3. So 3x minus 4 squared equals 15. Divide both sides by 3. So x minus 4 squared equals 5.